welcome to Lead Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Hello, brilliant folks. It's an honor to be here with you again. And I am so fortunate that I have someone working behind the scenes, a remarkable young man who just graduated from the universities, or university, I should say, and with honors. So thank you, Jethro, for doing your due diligence and always in support of Lead Live. And thank you to all of you who choose to leverage this broadcast, whether you've done historically on a regular basis or you're just tuning in for the first time. We value you. And this is all about you. So we are thoughtful and mindful about the nature of the topics that we cover because we believe that you are really, by default, hopefully not by default, hopefully intentionally, the CEOs of your lives, and that you're leading with distinction, and that you're leading in a way that not only add values to your life, really helps to enhance the quality of life for your loved ones, and then those who are affected by you. And yes, we're all affecting others, even if we think we're an isolate living alone. The nature of how we walk, how we breathe, what we think about, what we say, what we otherwise do, directly and indirectly affects the rest of us. Thus, Lead Live. And it's all about leadership excellence and achievement on demand, demand for each one of us. So today's topic is what it takes to thrive, executives' perspectives. So, some of what you're going to hear about today is a reflection of gathering details from a number of executives over a number of years and from different sources, including my own. And wanted to highlight this because of so much that's happening right now that makes us think sometimes that we're actually not in control. And I remember telling a dear friend's uh, husband years ago. We were talking, chit chatting. Actually, we were chit chatting about this guy I had a crush on, who was a good friend of his, and he was working on one of his movies. And I said, I asked him about his values, and he was telling me about his values, etc. And somehow we just started talking about other things that were non-related, that were actually deeper and more profound. And we were talking about the need for some people to control. And without going to all the details, this brilliant man was sharing his insights. He's a remarkable filmmaker, editor, works for Pixar, and has done remarkable things. If I told you some of the movies, you'd say, "Oh my God, that was a quality. That was a quality production from he and his team." In any event, getting to the point, talked about how some of us choose to control. And I remember saying to him, and we laughed about it, the only thing that I believe I'm in control of is being out of control. And even then, I'm not certain. Now, I've been wildly successful in some key areas by then. So it's not about my not believing that I had responsibility for myself. It's just recognizing and being humble to say control should never be the end. What should be the end is taking responsibility, taking the control over the self to move forward in a way that's invaluable. Anyway, that's a long little story to get to my point. I hope you don't mind. So, the topic today is what it takes to thrive, executives' perspective. And so, I want you to think about the obvious. Many of you are executives, a number of you are definitely executives in your own lives if you're not in a business. And so, the question is what does an executive do that leads her, him, them to thrive? They decide, they plan, they take action, and they leverage. Again, I'm going to use those words again: decide, plan, take action, and leverage. And yes, you can change that around. They may leverage first before they even know they can decide. They may plan first and have to, and leverage secondly, and adjust those plans and then decide and take action. However, you put those things in place, There's some level of decision that's happening at all points in advance of leveraging in order to decide to leverage, or even in advance of listening in order to determine that one should leverage. So be less concerned about the order and more concerned about the power each one of us are exercising every single day as we decide, as we plan, as we take action, as we leverage. And so I want to begin with the end in mind. As Covey would say, and so many of us have said over the years, the end for me is understanding how to honor yourself. Yes, I call it protect yourself sometimes. I call it check yourself. I call it um, self awareness. But here are the fundamentals, if I were to say at the end of the day, that I encourage us all to do on the path to thriving. Literally leading lives with healthy choices that leads to a healthy lifestyle. It includes the consumption of foods, quality thoughts, quality sounds, and oh my God, awesome, beautiful surroundings. Even in the midst, and especially for some people in the midst of a desert, you can see absolute beauty because you're not encumbered by a lot of stuff. You just see this extraordinary soil that somehow is able to allow for that cacti and that particular animal to thrive. And you're like, I don't see water anywhere. It hasn't rained for who knows how long. And yet things are being cultivated and they're thriving. Reminds me of a songwriter who wrote about roses growing in concrete, same kind of manifestation. There's beauty, there's genius, there's extraordinary stuff in all conditions. We just benefit from paying attention to our surroundings to see just that. So that's one. Quality foods, quality thoughts, quality sounds, quality surroundings. And then daily physical actions, activities that strengthens our core. The physical actions, the physical activity, the walking, the running, the stretching, the engaging, the smiling, the thinking, these are all actions. And they're helping to prime us. They're helping to pump all the kinds of juices, the energies, the blood, the psychic, the whatever it is that we're imbued with. Get it all activated, all moving, so that we can move more efficiently and effectively in our select or choice direction. So, daily physical actions or activities that strengthens your core. What are you if not your core? Someone recently, I'm not going to convey it as brilliant as he did, talked about the apple. And at the core of the apple is what we call a core. We think about the skin. Some of us love the skin because we know there's a lot of nutrition in the skin. Sometimes, depending upon the age of the apple, more nutrition on the skin than there is on the meat, which is the inner part of the skin. You go beyond the skin, you've got the meat of that apple. And then you eat the meat, which most of us do, and you've got the core. And that core is absolutely essential for that meat to have grown to that level of whatever nutritional value that also satiates, meets our needs, and then gave rise to that skin. Or the skin developed first and the meat, I don't know, enough. But the point is that core, without the core, there would not be that meat that we find delicious, some of us, or that skin is absolutely life sustaining for many of us. Think of that in terms of your overall body. The skin is just a manifestation of what's going on in the core. My skin, soft, sufficiently moistured, illuminating, all reflection of what's going on in my core. If it's just the inverse, which I would never speak to because I don't expect it to ever be there, it would be a reflection of my core. So it's independent of age. What's going on with the core manifests on the outside. And some people can see beauty a mile away, can't even see the physical manifestation, the outer manifestation, but can see the beauty of that, whatever that is. Be it a flower, be it a person, be it another type of an animal, be it a tree, be it life itself, because they're experiencing the core, the essence. So daily physical actions or activities that strengthens your core. The third is a mental growth mindset that promotes your being, your well-being, and your being the CEO of your life. I know we use CEO a lot. And yes, there's formal roles within organizations that are called CEOs, whether they're profit organizations, nonprofit, whether they're corporations, large, small, medium size, or uh, foundations, local community centers. You get my point. Educational institutions and the like. Yet, I want you to know whether you are a CEO in that formal type of professional role or you're a CEO focused on a clear vision for your life that's been operationalized into a mission that you must pursue, and then further operationalize into goals that may be based on benchmarks moving forward from a previous year or previous years, or brand new goals that have no historical reference, goals that are clearly aligned. When you achieve those goals, you're closer to the mission. Or you may actualize the mission then, depending upon how big that mission is. Make it bold, make it big, align with an extraordinary vision so that you, the essence of you, is manifested in those key aspects of the framework of your plan. And then come up with strategies, and then come up with timelines, then come up with resources, then decide how you're going to leverage, whom you're going to leverage, or what systems you're going to leverage, and get to further work. Actualize. That's what a CEO does. The other piece of this, the success of moving forward is a joy-filled set of resources that continuously elevate your consciousness. Joy-filled resources that continuously elevate your consciousness. I know, a lot of words. What am I really saying? I'm saying a lot. Intentionally, I made it kind of too abstract because I didn't want people to think it's only A, it's only B. You get to define what, and you are defining what joy-filled resources are. You're taking your time that you have control over to do what you want that brings you joy. That includes building a business or leveraging a pre-existing system to build your own business and not have to build it from the ground up, but build it to advance that system that's already in place to the advantage of not only hopefully your family, yourself, but also others. What better joy to know you've affected the lives of others, conditions of others. Even if they don't know your name, you walk around with a level of internal fulfillment. I can tell you stories, but my stories are not about being illuminated. It's really about me living so that others can reap the benefit of what that is. And if they find out it was me, that may be a nice bonus, but it's not about me. So they never need to know it was me. That's the beauty of choosing. For me, joy-filled resources is taking what I have and elevating others, whatever that means. And it means different things in different times for me, whether it was for folks who were young and old who need to be educated with quality education, And so I chose to lead in that space for nearly 40 years, and as an executive for 20 years, or it could be something else. Work in the homeless community without people even knowing I'm working in the homeless community, and do it in such a way where progress is occurring, or do it in ways where people do know that it's not about me, it's about them, and they're being supported by so many of us that they're not thinking about us, they're thinking about the solutions, and they're getting to the solutions faster. Oh my goodness, what kind of joy. That's so fulfilling. It wakes me up. It ensures that I'm able to move with a sense of efficiency, because I know there's an end that I'm looking to achieve. Now it's 1 million lives, 1 million families in less than 10 years. With joy-filled resources that allows you to continuously elevate your consciousness. And when I say consciousness, I'm just not talking about your mental faculties. They're in every cell of your body. I'm not just talking about your emotional predispositions or your emotional mind or your emotional subconscious mind. That's all cells of your body as well. And both the conscious and unconscious extend beyond the body, as we know scientifically. I'm talking about a level of consciousness that is really spiritual, that is so energetic, that it's not wedded to any kind of culture, uh, country, space and time, gender, has no respect of any of that. It supersedes, it's omnipotent. That's what I'm talking about. Elevate that part of you that goes far beyond what seems to be obvious. And you do that by intention or with intention. Bottom line is, be sure to enshrine your lifestyle into policies and plans, such as diversified portfolio, including a laser fund and a legacy plan, to ensure that you have the ability to sustain what you've envisioned, created, built, enhanced, passed on. Now, let's come back to the essence. What it takes to thrive. Give you just a general context. And I want to encourage you to remember to protect yourself. Again, your healthy lifestyle, your daily actions, your joy-filled resources. And more importantly, I want you to understand the pillars of success in a way that complements what you already know, or maybe it may introduce you to some things that you are not familiar with, yet intuitively you know these are truths. And they're not unique to the few people I know on the planet, or I knew of on the planet, that got this. I think at some core level, we all know truth. We know it when we see it, we know it when we smell it, we know it when we hear it, we know it when we experience it. Otherwise, truth is truth. It's independent of time and space or people. So let me cut to the chase. Ensuring you thrive. Well, let's say a number of things real quickly. Beyond establishing that vision, the mission, when you do that, remember that they're inner priorities. You've done that because that works for you. You didn't do it because someone said this is the best thing for you, or why don't you do that, or don't pay attention to that. You were just misguided. Go back to you. Spend the time with you. Go deep. Listen. That's you. Doesn't mean anyone's going to understand it. In fact, if it's really you, it's likely no one will understand unless they've gone through the same experience. They've done it well, and they, of course, got the same naysayers in their path. And unlike too many of us, they didn't follow the naysayers and throw themselves off their course. They stayed on that course. They focused. And what is focus? Follow one course until successful. It doesn't mean that you don't enhance something, that you don't learn from a failure. In fact, failure is an inevitable and it's part of the journey to success. Remember that. Please don't negate you because you think I failed. I didn't do it. I didn't do it enough time. Everybody else is doing it. You're not anyone else. You do it in your own time and you're building the foundation on which when you thrive, it's solid. It won't go into quicksand. So what if it takes you 5 years and it took someone a year and a half? They may have gone too fast for themselves. In 10 years, they experience quicksand and they're out of the game. You don't know. No one of us knows the other story. Not fully, really. Independent of whether they're loved ones, that includes family members, siblings, parents, cousins, or old friends, or just new colleagues that you think you have a clue about. No one knows the other circumstances fully. They may have been working 40 years on that and only told you 6 months. They may have been working on it 2 days and succeeded. They are so focused on leveraging, leveraging, leveraging. And that's one of the key pillars to success, ensuring that we're able to thrive. Leverage, leverage. Sometimes people say, I want to do this, but I don't know how. I want to do this because I think it's going to help me get to my end, but I really don't have a passion for it. I want to do it because I know it's going to help my family, but I don't really like it or something's problem. Leverage, leverage, leverage. And it's more than just leveraging a person to open the door for you. Connections are critical, without a doubt. It's leveraging even other people's faith in you, their passion for what they're doing that you want to do for whatever rational or even non-rational reason sometimes. But you just feel like it's the route to go. And you break through all those challenges and you stay focused, and all of a sudden you figure it out and you get there and you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I stuck with it. Because had I wavered, I would have felt better because it would have kept me in my comfort space. But oh my God, that was scary. But I did it. I leverage others' passion. I leverage others' knowledge. I leverage others' skills. I leverage others' connections and other essential resources. So leverage, 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 folks. The other, and it makes me think about a colleague who's in the same business I am, financial services. This guy several years ago was a server. And in less than 3 years, he did what he told his wife he'd do. And he had no idea how he was going to do it. He did it bigger than he could have even imagined. He exceeded his high expectation. In 3 years, he went from being a server, respectful, honoring his role, honoring his company, earning $30,000 a year, in less than 3 years, earning $1 million. How did he do that? Well, he leveraged leaders who had already succeeded in ways he desired, and they possessed comparable values. We call them the 5Fs: faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. And they lived it. They're living it. And so not only did they have values he aligned with, so that he could be on the path of a common sense, which is a reflection of common values and common experiences. A lot of people say, well, they don't have common sense. Well, how could they when they don't have common values or common experiences? And most people say, well, you just get that. Well, how do you get that? He was not no less brilliant when he was a server. He just used his brilliance that he already had to leverage others who were already succeeding using a system, and he followed their practices. He didn't waver. He used the system that worked, and he employed the practices that worked. So that's one, right? Leverage. Another is determination. In fact, I'm going to show you the visual of what I'm going over so that you can jump ahead of me, because I have stories in my head and I want to just jump into the stories. In fact, let me ask, Jet, can you put that slide up? Oh, there you go. You're so on it. And so the next one is determination. So I just want you to see that list of 10. There's more, but these are the core. Determination reminds me of a 21-year-old footballer. He was destined for the pros, only to experience his dream interrupted by a life event. It didn't allow him to do what he thought was the only path to his being a true champion. Yes, he was on uh, a Division A football team in an area that's considered one of the most remarkable areas of the country, and yet from a neighborhood that was destined, from many people's perspective, to have a lot of children who grow into adulthood and be at best lower middle class, meaning not as successful as the environment around them. And yet, he didn't allow that life event to disrupt his pursuit to become a champion in an industry he had not prepared for. So now, 20 years later, this man, with the genius of his wife, now have amassed over $100 million, and he's only 40 years old. 40 years of age. How did he do that? Well, he had determination. He continued to perform or achieve independent of the difficulty and in an area that he was not trained for, and he didn't initially have help. In fact, people were thwarting him and looking forward to him failing. And everyone around him told him, "What are you doing going to financial services? Guy, you're wasting your time. And that business, that's a scam. Backed by trillions of dollars, it's a scam." And yet they believed it. He chose to follow his passion. He muted the sounds of the naysayers. He engaged his burning desire to win and win big, folks. And he used a system. He modeled the behaviors after the big winners. He did what has always worked. He leveraged. He leveraged. He leveraged. And primarily starting and continuing with his own genius. So the next one was grit. I'm reminded of a child who's now an adult. She was born to a 13-year-old who had been abused since the age of 5. Now, from that child, was destined for rational reasons, according to adults, to become a street child. A, Definitely was a throwaway child. And at best, to live to the age of 20. Well, fast forward, that child is now an adult in her 60s. She outgrew the mentally retarded stereotyped assessment that was done on her when she was in grade school to secure her PhD, lead within institutions and on boards. How in the heck did she do that? She had grit. She had a drive, stamina, fortitude to push through any obstacle. In fact, she leveraged the obstacles because she thought if there was an obstacle, that meant she was supposed to work with that, work through it, work around it, or eliminate it in order to be successful. She had a burning desire. She tested. She constantly was testing. She would not settle for anything. She was discovering new ways to achieve again and again. And she did what the previous guys did. She leveraged, she leveraged, she leveraged. She leveraged failures, especially. And she focused on her own inner goals and the big vision that she had. And the next one was grind. Destined for greatness, it seemed. A very humble professional nearly died in a plane accident. She was in ICU and with less than a 10% prognosis of survival. Not only did she survive, she did what was unexpected because she was not expected to have any mobility should she survive. Another person with similar odds of survival had a brain aneurysm. Her husband was told rather by the doctors that since she survived the surgery, which they didn't expect her to survive, they expected her to have less than 10% survival. I think it was closer to 5%, but she did. Thanks to their genius, thanks to the faith that we all possess, and thanks to a greater spirit that far beyond us. Yet she still required life support for a while. Supposedly she'd never functioned with most of her cognitive faculties. She'd have some major defects. According to them, well, both of these women are thriving in their own unique way. One is a vice president of a college and engaged as a grandmother, and to many others, she's a critical resource. And the other is a grandmother also, a major research source to her church, elders in the community, children, and grandchildren too. Both were focused. They followed one course until they were successful. They understood their circumstance at some point, and they engaged their mental tools, will, perception, reason, intuition, imagination, and more. They chose to pull themselves up as the rest of us with our faith, with our love, etc., mobilizing in our own ways. Yet if they didn't choose, which we're all choosing and we're all deciding, who knows where we'd be with regards to those brilliant women. So what was difficult, they literally performed repetitive tasks on over and over and over again to achieve the goals that got them to where they're at now. Many of these leaders, some I've mentioned, many in my head, they're engaged in sacrificing. They understand in order to win big, they've got to give up something. If they give up nothing, they have no space for the big win. So they give up something for children, for community, for countries, for humanity, for life itself. Then there's the execution. Then there's perseverance. Then there's the numerous examples of folks who succeeded and actually used traumatic experiences to thrive across this planet and throughout history. I'm recalling, wow, some of the names that people can go to remember. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Dr. Maya Angelou, or I'm thinking about Steve Jobs, in a different level, affecting the lives of actually billions of people. And I don't know that he and his small team of folks who got together, those 3 men in total, who then leveraged the two in particular, and then Steve Jobs leveraging even more, had a clue that they would affect the lives of billions of people. Definitely wanted to win big. So they kept their sight on winning big when all the naysayers said, oh, give it a rest. Computers, you got to. Apple, really? Seemingly, even Steve Jobs was lost. Why? Because he built this extraordinary company with other people. He led it, and then he was let out the door at some point. Now, many people build something that's so remarkable, and in a public way, be walked out the door of their own creation. Now, he didn't do it alone. He did it with other people, through other people. He leveraged, he understood the importance of collaboration. He wasn't perfect by no means. None of us, as far as I'm aware, have ever been perfect or may ever be. I think that's part of the human experience, is taking our imperfection and then seeing what we can do with it. Well, he took his genius and he didn't go and pout for the rest of his life. He may have cried a few days or whatever and got upset or extremely mad. He channeled that ultimately and built a couple of major organizations after that, including Pixar. And it was so extraordinary what happened. They went to buy it and say, we want you back. We need you back because we don't have a clue what we're doing. He could have said, nope, I've taken my marbles. You cannot have Pixar. We're going to continue this, and I'm just going to create something else. No, he was strategic. He was astute. He saw a bigger vision, and it wasn't about him at the end of the day. He still had ego, without a doubt, but he had enough space to allow for other people to take Apple to the next level. Perseverance, hustle. I have some of these images behind me. Intentionally, execute, success, grit, hustle. Among the many, it's just to remind us that they're part of the growth mindset. What leads to success? Hard work, perseverance, learning, studying, sacrificing, loving what you're doing. The predictable result of hard work, patience, sacrifice, and learning put into practice every day. That's what hustle is. When you're hustling, people may never see it. It's like that beautiful iceberg we've shown here before. You see the tip of it, you're like, oh my God, that woman, she's extraordinary. Look what she's done. Like, how did she do that? Oh yeah, she's just born with a silver spoon in her mouth, and she was always like that. She didn't have to do anything. She just shows up, and it's like that. Hmm. You didn't know all the naysayers, including some of the folks who are talking about she's a genius, who said she couldn't do it. In fact, she's not going to do it. And then some of those same folks jump in front and say, I always knew. Most people don't know your potential. And if you're waiting for them to know, then I say, quite frankly, shame on you. You should be showing up for you first and foremost, and showing out in a way that really adds the kind of value that I think we're all born to illuminate. We're all valuable. We don't need someone to give us a name, a number, a destination, a grade, a location, a position, a title. We don't need that. And yet, a lot of us wait to receive that before we show up and begin to show out. The folks who are thriving, they engage in hard work. They're patient with their steps. Even though internally they're impatient, they remain steadfast. They sacrifice, they give up something, give up whether it's mediocre, whether it's even good, in order to get to the place where they're experiencing greatness. We all have to give up something. And there's so much that we carry with us as baggage that is actually to our advantage to give up, whatever that is. We don't have to give up our love of people or things. We may be postponing things for a spell. And some things we are in our lives that don't serve us. So it is to our advantage to give up that stuff as soon as possible, even though it may hurt us. I've been there. I've given up stuff. In fact, one thing I gave up, literally, I felt what people talked about, having a knife go right through your heart. I felt like someone was taking a knife and taking it, a rough, dirty, old knife, and cutting my heart as I stood there and was releasing something that didn't serve me. Some of you, hopefully only few of you, know what I'm talking about. That's powerful. When you're able to give up something in order to get to a greater place, to experience greatness, oh my God, you're giving yourself one of the best gifts. Everything is for a spell. Some certain things last longer or last throughout our lives, and others are only for a season. And just like seasons, we've got to refresh. Another piece is determination. Talked about determination earlier. Continuing to do something even given all the difficulties, because it's a precondition to success, your ability to achieve what you want to achieve. That grit is unwavering commitment, firmness of mind, unyielding courage. Hopefully, you've seen it in real life a lot. And when you look in the mirror, you're reminded of your own grit, your grind. Oh my God. You engage in the same activity over and over again. You're like, oh my God, I got to do it again. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. This is awesome. Okay, it's a little bit tiring, but oh, I remember why I'm doing it. It's great. Yes. And then we sacrifice. We give up something, give up the bad, give up even the good to get the great, to experience that greatness. And as we're continuously executing, We're making our ideas work in a planned or strategic way. We're putting in the work and letting the results do the talking. We're putting in the work and letting the results do the talking. We're persevering. You know what that means. Cutting through difficulties, failures, oppositions, and you're still walking. Knocked down, get back up, keep going. If you've got to crawl for a while, you're crawling for a while. You get back up. You need to take a flight to get to where you got to go, keep going. Persisting. Doing something even though it's difficult. The hustle, again, is working hard consistently with determination to earn the life you deserve. Wow. So wealth, all sustainable wealth comes down to what I said earlier. Ongoing learning, a drive, an internal drive, mental, physical, spiritual stamina, consistently engaging in hard work with time for fun. That's a life lesson for me to learn. Not used to fun, but getting into that more and more. And I hope I'm a good example for others going forward. I'll begin to share with you more of the fun that I'm doing, experiencing. And it could be as simple as going to a jazz concert, which I love jazz, or going someplace where they'll make up my favorite, chocolate mousse. There's a guy I dated years ago. For my birthday, he brought me this huge container of chocolate mousse. I thought I was going to die. And yes, I did eat it all up in a day. It's crazy. I was sick, but I was sick not eating it. It was awesome. That was fun. Or whether it's going river rafting. I love river rafting. And being knocked out of the raft and just finding my way back to shore. I mean, that is awesome. Haven't done that in over 20 years. Or going to where there's snow and just lying in the snow, or where there's meadows, oh my God, in grass. You find fun, especially with children. Oh my God. I don't care if they're introverted or extroverted. They are the most fun-filled spirits on the planet. Just be open, because they facilitate a level of learning that's awesome. The other part of this thriving is repetition. Continuously using, as an example, a system and a set of practices that are known to work. Even when you find it's boring, you use fun to interrupt that boring state and then recharge, because you know you're getting to where you want to go. Leveraging failures, I can't speak to that enough. Listening to experts. Focus, focus, focus for the greatest good to get to the desired outcomes. There's something I shared recently in a post, thanks to Jethro and another member of our team, Trisha. And I want to read it, if you don't mind. I try to steer away from just reading for the sake of reading. And yet, I think this is powerful. And this speaks to the US, but also speaks to other countries around the planet. So just go Google or go do some research and get the facts on your country. But more importantly, get the facts on your own life and choose to be your healthiest self. Choose to protect yourself and your family. And in doing so, you're healthier for the rest of us. And you ensure that more of us are protected. Adds to the value of all of our lives. So even though the United States, the US, ranks 11th among 169 countries in terms of wealth, the US only ranks 35 or 35th according to the 2019 Bloomberg Healthiest Country Index. 11 among the wealthiest. That was in 2019, and also 35th among the healthiest. We've got some real issues here. And that's a Bloomberg Healthiest Country Index. Among the top diseases in this country that led to the high demand, for long-term care and millions of deaths annually are heart disease, cancer, accidents, unintentional injuries in particular, chronic lower respiratory diseases, strokes, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, influenzas, pneumonias, kidney diseases. Now, we know many of these diseases and other diseases are preventable, and we're hopeful that increasing numbers of us are opting for healthier lifestyles in order to do much more than just survive. We want folks to thrive. We don't know how long our lives are here, why we're here necessarily right away, yet we do know when we experience a passion, and that may be why we're here. We do know when we experience some kind of interruption, and that may be why we're here, to experience that interruption and see where it takes us. We do know that we have intuition. It's a knowing that we know without needing evidence to know that we know that we know. It's powerful. I think that's really our connection to the Great Spirit, whether we call it all of our collective ancestry, historically, going forward, because I don't really believe there's a difference between the past, the current, and the future. They're all one. We don't have the past anymore, though, and we don't have the future. We have the present, which is a present. And the power we have is to grow. And in that growth, we can experience thriving if we so choose. And some of us end up in a state where we're thriving. We're like, how did this happen? I feel so fortunate. You are. We are all fortunate. And the definition of thriving for you, or thriving for the next person, or thriving for me, may be qualitatively different, let alone quantitatively if we're talking about money or the means of exchange. It allows us to have the shelter, the clothing, the experiences that we find invaluable. But we want you to remember to protect yourself. Protect yourself through a healthy lifestyle choices. I mentioned them earlier in terms of the consumption of quality foods, thoughts, sounds, and surroundings. Daily physical actions. Notice I use actions and not just activities. Action suggests intention. And that's really what I want to convey. Daily physical actions that strengthens your core, and a mental growth mindset that promotes you being the CEO of your life. And all of those different fundamental pieces of growth mindset we want you to remember. Because ultimately, we do want you to experience a joy-filled life, using joy-filled resources that continuously elevates your consciousness. Mm. What are some joy-filled resources? Other people. Other people who figured it out. Whatever the it is that you may be trying to figure out. They figured it out, and they're not only doing extremely well, they're not only thriving in the so-called traditional way with money, with lifestyle, they are having fun. Those people are joy-filled resources. There are others, not just people. It's conditions, it's places, it's actual resources. I work with a couple of remarkable, well, I work with a number of remarkable folks, and a couple will likely be the farmers that I imagine myself having been and will be again. I used to love to toil in the soil, and especially to put my fingers in to just not only turn over the soil, but to put seeds in and to put other kinds of nutrients in. But more importantly, when I was in distress of any kind or just stress, I would allow the soil, and the soil will allow me to grieve in it. And the healing that came not just because of the plants that I could eat later on were so nutritious, but because of the flowers I could see that were just awesome and beautiful. I mean, they seemed unreasonably gorgeous. And also the comfort and the, oh my God, the awesome relaxation and the ability to get through what I was going through at any given time. And I remember experiencing 6 deaths of loved ones in less than 6 months. And then one loved one came by and harmed herself, leaving because of the nature of that particular place that I was in for a spell. And was going down the stairs, and oh my gosh, I won't tell the full story. Bottom line, she's recovered beautifully. I remember that time, and the only thing that I could think I could do was something one of my advisors from the University of California at Berkeley recommended. And I'll speak his name because I want to honor his spirit. He's no longer here with us. His wife is, his children are. That's Dr. Norton Grubb Jr. I remember him saying, have you gone to the health center? And I remember him saying, there's this group called Namaste, take advantage of them. And he had no idea at that moment in time, he saved my life. I'm a grad student. I'm in 2 PhD programs. I'm working full time. He didn't know I was working full time. So any rational person would say, you should be exhausted. And I'm doing consulting. But it wasn't that, because all those things were easy to do. The challenge was emotionally, I didn't know. I was so overwhelmed with those deaths of loved ones, including a brother, 2 brothers, including a nephew, a brother, and then a second brother, and including a mother figure, including a father. It was just crazy. It was overwhelming. And then I took advantage of those resources, but then something said, go into the soil. Do what you love doing in the soil. Look for the bugs. I don't know why I'm not a bug researcher. But look for the bugs, honor them, just play. And I did that. Oh my God, it gave me such joy. Initial comfort, initial release of stress, and then joy. So, again, whatever fulfills you, leverage joy filled resources, performances, live performances. Whether it's in a corporate organization, I know you thought I was thinking dance or theater, those too. Some people love, like me, I love watching people engage their craft. I used to love when I was a college president watching faculty members. They didn't know I was the first, well, even when I was a dean or a VP, going into a faculty member's office or going into their, primarily their classrooms, almost like their offices, because they're in there most of the time, and witnessing them facilitate the learning of these adults, witnessing them doing what Vygotsky talks about, helping people move through that zone of proximal development so that they could move from where they were with their current knowledge to this new knowledge with ease, efficiency, and effectively. It was, when I saw genius, it was just, oh my God, it gave me so much joy that I got to hire that person, or I got to promote that person, or I got to evaluate that person, or more importantly, I got to learn from that person. So, whatever the joy filled resources are, encourage you to leverage them to help elevate your consciousness. Leverage them in your particular space or spaces. Be sure to enshrine your lifestyle again. I want to emphasize that again into policies and plans, such as a diversified portfolio, including a laser fund. If you don't know what that is, contact us. And a legacy plan. Again, you don't know what that is, contact us. We had a brilliant attorney on last week to give some of the fundamentals to that, as well as his contact information so that you can drill deeper and build your legacy plan for your business, for your family, for yourself. We just want you to ensure that you're able to not only sustain what you've envisioned, what you've created, and likely with teams of remarkable people, yet you're able to thrive while you're alive. we do honor you. We honor you. And next week, we're excited to have two remarkable leaders on with us, assuming that their schedules will permit. And we'll be talking about the power and the importance of business partnerships. So tune in next week, next Wednesday. In the meantime, continue to do what you know works. Leverage us to the degree that it helps you. Share this content with others. Foremost, be your best because you can. Wado.